mat, so it looks
there you go. All good.
excellent.
Right, we're going to admit all. Are we ready?
Yeah, ready. I'm going to put my laptop a bit higher.
Morning, everyone.
Morning, everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Claire.
Hi, Nick. How's the residential?
Well, do you know what? We had to pull it at the very last minute because of we had loads of kids. Well, all the kids lateral flowed, and then there was quite a few positives, so we couldn't risk 4 hours on a coach.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
So lots of conversations. Poor Mark had loads of conversations with Public Health England yesterday, and we were literally at the point that the kids were all in the hall. Kids were all in the hall ready to go, and the coaches were outside, and it was like, yeah. So Greg Fell's written as a letter to go on the website.
Oh, that is heartbreaking. I'm so sorry.
I know, I'm gutted. Well, I'm not so gutted for the 4-hour drive that I didn't have to do because I was in a hire car, but I am gutted that we're not there because we were really looking forward to it.
Yeah.
I've got to say, I'm not gutted at all. For the kids, yes, but I'm just really glad to have it here with us.
Quite right.
Yeah,
Are you all right, Portia?
Yeah.
Are you okay?
Cracking. It's just it's great when he's already broken up and he's like running around the house going, oh, on holiday. I'm like, what, another week? Shush.
Yeah, exactly. Nothing from you.
So yeah, it's all good. He's I can't complain. He's taken everybody to dancing this morning, so we have an empty house for once.
Oh,
So, all good. Right. Can I ask that everybody adjusts their participant name? If you don't know how to do that, if you go into participants, you've then got a little menu where it says more. You can click on that and then you can adjust your name. So I thought it'd be really good if we had first names and then locations and then our Twitter handles, so we can see who we're near and who our neighbours are. It also gives us a bit of a clue about when we're booking for future events where we need to locate ourselves to hit as many people as possible for ease. And then also we can obviously follow each other. So I've learned how to do that. I'm a bit of a Zoom novice.
I'm struggling here, I think.
Oh, hi, Anne.
Hi.
Hi. Nice to see you.
Sorry, I'm so new to all this. Should I be doing something?
Not yet. I don't think. Oh, I can rename you. Oh, I can do it for you. Look at this. So I can do Anne, and you're Sheffield, aren't you, Anne?
Yeah.
And you're not on Twitter, are you?
No.
So there you go. So I'm just going to put Anne Quayle Sheffield, so we all know. That's brilliant. I didn't even.
Very nice curtains, Anne.
Well, I'm so stressed by the technology.
You and me both, Anne. We've done
really well, Anne.
I've been here since 9 o'clock.
It's all right.
I'm just going to shout the guy over the road in.
Or she's just witnessed me putting the last one makeup on as I'm hurriedly trying to get everything.
I never thought about all that. Gosh.
We come as we are. We absolutely come as we are. I'm just wearing my girly SWAT jumper.
Good.
Absolutely.
For the people who have just admitted, because I'm just monitoring the thingy room, waiting room. If you can just change your name, as Portia just said, just change your name to your first name, where you're from, and then your Twitter handle if you're on Twitter. That'd be ace. So like mine's Vicky Sheffield at Victoria blah blah blah.
Right, can I just ask a question? So all I can see on my screen is like this big thing that says, what can women do for you, blah, blah, blah. And then down the side, I've just got yourself, Portia, Vicky, Claire, etc. on a little grid. Shall I just leave that alone or shall I press something?
No, that's fine. That means you get to see the screen of what's up on the slides and our face, whoever's talking.
Got it. Wow, right.
Right. This is going to be new for me, of monitoring chat, participants, and the slides at the same time. So yeah, bear with us, everyone. I will look after
participants, Portia.
Oh, amazing.
And chat while you're doing your slides.
That's super dupes, and then we shall swap. Okay, so I think it is nearly 5 past, so we shall get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the relaunch of the Yorkshire and Humber Network for Women Ed. Really, really excited to be with everyone today. We've got an amazing lineup of some incredibly inspirational women sharing their stories about what Women Ed has done for them and why Women Ed exists. We're going to go through some slides at the start. Forgive me if you've seen these before, if you have been in Women Ed for years. We're just going to go back through who we are, why we exist, what our campaigns are, what our values are, and really why we're all here today. And then you're going to get a chance to hear from some incredible women and really start your weekend the way we want to get it started. So moving on. Hoping that everybody, if you are on Twitter, is going to get involved today. We have got our own Twitter handle, which is Women Ed, Y and H, because you can't have the and sign, obviously. And if you can include the hashtag Women Ed for all of your tweets, that would be brilliant. And we are going to be monitoring those as well this morning. Okay. Clicking on. So this is a really exciting slide. Everywhere you see a purple little location is where there is a Women Ed group. And it started off just in the United Kingdom, and now look how global it has gone. And it just shows there are women in education across the world, all united in their working towards narrowing the gender pay gap, getting rid of it completely, working on improving women's confidence, looking at representation and diversity in education, in particular in leadership across the world, all working together. And if you were able to be at the Unconference, it was 2 weeks ago now. No, yes, 2 weeks ago now, you would have seen it went literally 24 hours overnight from Friday until Sunday, because people were all the way across the world presenting, which is an incredible thing. Incredible. Right. So I'm going to show you some of our national team now. So there is obviously, because of the global networks, it's been a bit of a restructure recently. So we now have Women Ed England. And over the next few slides, you're just going to see some of our key figures. All of them are followable on Twitter, but you can also follow what we're up to via our newsletter, which I'm going to send you a link for later on. So I'm just going to show you these wonderful women's faces, and just leave their handles there in case you want to follow any of them. If you are joining us from elsewhere across UK, hi, and it might well be that some of the faces you see on this screen are your regional leads. Now, Vicky and I and Claire and some of the others that are joining us today are regional leads for Yorkshire and Humber, and obviously that spreads quite a long way. But we've also got Jackie, who is our fellow neighbour from Northeast as well with us today. So you will get a chance to realise that Women Ed stretches far and wide, and there's lots of incredible women that are there as your representative for your local area. So we've also got Christala, who I think is joining us today at some point, which will be great. We've got Mareme and Victoria, who is also here, I believe, which is awesome. So hi, Vicky, if you're here. So, and I'm going to hand over to Vicky.
Okay, so one of the main missions of Women Ed and certainly of Women Ed Yorkshire and Humber is to make sure that women have got a real choice. And it's not just a choice to do our jobs, it's a choice to make progress in our leadership. And in terms of that, we need to build that support network. We need to be able to be there for all of us to make sure that we can make progress and we can break through that glass ceiling, so to speak, in terms of our leadership journey. Right. Okay, click on that winner. So what we've got here are our values. Now I love this poster. So it's one that's been around for ages, actually, hasn't it, Portia?
Yes,
yeah, really long time. But every time I see it, I think, oh, Joe, it's so good. And I look at it differently every time I see it. But I'm just going to talk through those different values that we've got for Women Ed. So first of all, we've got clarity. And in terms of clarity, it's acknowledging that gender imbalance in educational leadership. And there was something, I think it was in the TES yesterday, around if we continue going the way we are, there's still going to only be in secondary headship. It's like an 80-20 split between male and female head teachers. It really is quite stark in terms of that. So we're very lucky today having people like Claire, who is an awesome secondary head, and people like Anne, who is a retired CEO but was an amazing secondary head as well. So that's one of our values. We've got communication. So actually this relaunch today is part of that. It's part of that, actively seeking and promoting the Women Ed mission. So that's one thing that we want to really make sure that we do well here in Yorkshire and Humber. confidence and taking time to be and comfortable to be 10% braver. And Portia and I both dug out our books last night, so Women Ed have got their yep, there we go, our 2 books. So 10% braver and being 10% brave as well, and they are super books. If you haven't got a copy, they're well worth it. Collaboration is the next one of our values, and when we're talking about collaboration, we're talking about that network and enhancing that current network, building that network and sharing of experience. And that's something that I've found absolutely invaluable in terms of Women Ed as well. We've got connection, so connecting our existing and our aspiring leaders and those who support them. So it's not just about being a female leader, it's about having that network of amazing women around you to support and inspire and help with that. We've got community, and actually making sure that as a network and as a community, we're inclusive, and we really are to the core of it inclusive as well. Challenge, so highlighting those systemic barriers. I think that's a superb phrase, those systemic barriers to more inclusive and diverse leadership, and it is something that Women Ed really are quite passionate about there. And then change as the last one as well, collecting evidence of impact on developing inclusive and diverse leadership. So not just being the change, but then evidencing the change and promoting that change as well. So those are our values there. I'm going to hand back to Portia.
Okay, thank you, Vicky. So one of those core values, we've already mentioned this earlier, is about the representation of women leaders across education. So I'm going to share some current research with you and really why we're here and why we're doing what we're doing alongside the values that Vicky's just talked about. So we've got some quite shocking statistics here. So if you look in terms of head teachers and secondary head teachers, so primary head teachers remain stable for about 10 years, around 74% of primary heads are women. But if you look in terms of the growth for women, it is much, much slower in secondary. So only 25% in 2001, but that's only grown in 2016 to 38%. Now we're looking at gathering new data for that around there. And if you follow Viv Porritt on Twitter, there is some current research just about to come out on those statistics. But as you can see, although it's growing, it is not growing quickly enough. And obviously we've got this quote here from Kay Fuller. I'll just give you a second to read that. And I'm sure you'll agree with me that 2040 is just not soon enough for that representation to become equal. So that's why we're here, doing what we do, trying to encourage women to be 10% braver, step up and get rid of some of that imposter syndrome and boost everyone else around them as well. So that's really why Women Ed is here, to disrupt, to challenge and to change this problem that we are looking at here in particular. And on that, I will hand back to Vicky.
I'm trying to unmute myself. My dad keeps phoning me, so I'm like, I'm just about to turn my phone off. It's like he's not read his text message. So as Portia's just said there, so our campaigns disrupt, innovate and change. So when we're talking about these things here, we're looking at, as it says on the screen, I'm not going to be that person who just reads all those PowerPoint slides. But as it does say there, things like advocating for flexible working practices. And I know people like Emma Turner and the maternity CPD group and people like that have done amazing things in terms of looking at how there can be real parity in terms of flexible working practices, how it can be embraced, that, you know, as you can be co-head teachers, and I know Claire has been a co-head, but have things like co-head teachers, things like it's okay to be an SLT and not work full time, and I think those are really, really key campaigns that Women Ed are part of. The gender pay gap, I mean, it's been all over the news. We can't really sort of talk about pay without there being that elephant in the room of gender pay, and that is still there, and it is down to us to start making that seismic shift and make things really, really quite fair. And then, as Portia's mentioned as well, my random plucked out figures wasn't 80-20, it's 60-40. But that representation in terms of leadership roles, it is something that is really, really key. You know, we make up such a huge, as females, as women, we make up such a huge part of the workforce, yet at the higher echelons of that, we're not fairly represented. So it is really key that our campaigns are there, then they are important. Okay, next slide. We do have some amazing allies, and I know we've got some people joining us. We've set off this morning, but I do know this, we've got some wonderful allies that are joining us in terms of the He for She campaign, and there are lots of males and chaps out there who support us wonderfully and really do support the work that Women Ed does. So I think that is something that is again really quite key. So do have a look at that hashtag as well on Twitter, because there's some super people that you can follow there as well. Okay, Portia.
Right. So back to me. What's out there? So this is not just about attending on a Saturday morning and getting a bit of a boost to start your weekend right. This is about actually what's there for you and how can you get involved beyond just joining us this morning. So we have got network events that take place across the country. And the joy, if you like, one of the fantastic things that's come out of COVID is actually this interconnectedness via the computer in front of you. Yes, it's not the same as face-to-face, but there's nothing stopping us now joining a lead meet down in London just with the click of a button rather than spending 2 to 3 hours on a train. And we can even join those from across the globe, and that's incredible. So in a way, it's actually brought us closer together, even though we were further apart in our own houses. And we've also got the Annual Conference, which we've already mentioned. That is how I got hooked into Women Ed in the first place. If you have not been in the flesh, and we're hoping it might be in the flesh again next year, what an incredible experience it is of just so many women and allies all in one place together, listening, sharing, collaborating, getting that clarity around why we do what we do. It's an incredible experience, really uplifting, and just so educational as well. And the joy of this year's is it's all on YouTube, which I'll come back to in a minute. So it's all been recorded, so you can watch it in your own time, in your pajamas, with a glass of wine. It's all good, or coffee, or whatever you choose to have as your beverage of choice. We've also got the MSc in Educational Leadership and Management with the National College of Education, which is incredible. And at this point, I'm just going to hand back to Vicky because she has been on it, which is awesome. So tell us a bit about that, Vicky.
Yeah, so I signed up, goodness, I'm over halfway through just my dissertation to go, which is slightly terrifying. Yeah, so I signed up with the NCE for the one that I signed up for is actually an MEd. It has been changed now, and the new course is an MSc, but it's wonderful. And I know we've got colleagues on with us at the moment who are also studying for masters or for PhDs, but actually the NCE and the Women Ed cohort of that, oh my goodness, I'm going to talk about it a little bit in my little 5-minute snippet, but it is wonderful. And the Women Ed part of it, so I signed up and then switched across to the Women Ed cohort of the NCE masters, and wow, the women I've met and the people that I've got the opportunity to collaborate with it's just a phenomenal experience, and I would massively recommend it to anybody. It's hard work, by the way, but I would massively recommend it to anybody and everybody.
Thank you very much, Vicky. We've also got the Women Ed Book Club, which has been so exciting as well. It's a kind of a bit of a slow chat, if you like, and then they occasionally have these events where everyone gets together on Twitter to discuss what it is they've been reading. I know that Jackie has got a recommendation for us as well. It's just going to pop in the chat from one, just particularly for us Yorkshire lasses. There it goes. So thanks, Vicky. So it's there you go. Thank you, Jackie. So the right sort of girl. So, and we all know, as we already plugged, these are brilliant as well. The actual Women Ed books. And it's one of those things that it's about getting those influences and ideas from what we're reading, and it not always just being, we like to read to further our professions. And I know some people will enjoy that more than others, but recommending the books that are easy reads as well as ones that are going to feed your brain and empower you. That's great recommendations, so follow them if you don't already. We've got our 2 books. There are blogs galore on the website that get pushed out again via Twitter, and we've got our own YouTube channel now. And you've also got the newsletter there, which you can sign up to, which gives you that overview of everything Women Ed that is going on. It comes out every couple of months, and you get that plug for all those events, what's coming up with book club. You get opportunities for getting involved in lots of different ways. I'm going to put the link to the link into that newsletter in the chat soon for you. Okay. So, and again, these are all the different contacts you have got of how you can get involved. As our website. And again, I'll share these links, but we are on every social media basically, but not just on the social media, because we know that some people choose not to. And I think increasingly through the pandemic, people have pulled away a little from it at times because it's become a bit much. So there is lots of different ways, even if you are not a big social media advocate, that you can get involved, in particular through the website. And there are many face-to-face faces that are starting to come back now, now that we are moving out of isolation. So keep your eyes peeled for those if that is more your thing. And again, I promise we're not on commission, but the books are brilliant. If you haven't had a chance, they are written by the Women Ed community. They are available on Amazon, currently at a slightly discounted price as well, if you want to get some in time for Christmas. But we'd also encourage you to share them around, just like Joe's talking about there on the chat. Thank you. And it is about dipping in and out. And yeah, it's about passing on those messages that we take away from it as well, and starting those conversations and being 10% braver about spreading the messages that are within them. So really quality reads, do highly recommend them. So the challenge to us this year, from the Being 10% Braver book, is about sharing how we are each going to be 10% braver. So I recently pledged about that, about really making my voice heard and really stepping forward to put out the Women Ed message across my trust, which is what I've pledged to do this year. So what we're going to ask is, through today's session, while you're hearing all these fantastic ideas from people, we'd love you to be able to pledge how you are going to be 10% braver as a result of our session this morning going forward. Remember, hashtag Women Ed. That's the most important one. Hashtag impact is great as well. However, hashtag Women Ed, absolutely right first. Okay, so slightly over. Sorry, Anne, we are coming.
That's fine.
So we've had our opening and welcome. Anne is up next. We're then going to have Samina come and talk to us about why Women Ed. So excited about Samina joining us, who was one of the original founders of Women Ed. Then you've got a speed dating session from some of the regional leads from around the UK about what Women Ed has done for us and why we've been involved in the first place and how we pay it forward. And then you get a chance to get involved, and we're going to pop you into breakout rooms, and you're going to get a chance to talk through what issues are most relevant to you, and a chance to talk through what you'd like from your regional network. And then you're not going to get a chance to just sit back. One of you for each room, whoever's going to be 10% braver, is going to stand up, well, not stand up, come on screen and share the headlines from what your room was really talking about and what was at the heart of your cause for being here today. And then we will be done by 12, promise. Okay, so I'm going to hand back to Vicky, who's going to introduce Anne for us.
Thank you. Yeah, so Anne is, I've known Anne for quite a while, and I've had the privilege of Anne being a mentor for me as well, who is a phenomenal, as I've already said, was a phenomenal head teacher, an amazing CEO. And we are really, really privileged to have you join us. So Anne, I will go on mute and fire away.
Thank you, everybody. I feel as if I've already been very brave this morning by coming on here. It's my first ever Zoom meeting. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for asking me. And the first thing I thought of was, when I was asked, was, am I good enough? And we're our own worst enemies, aren't we? But what I want to say in this is, be more girl. The strengths we have as women will make us fantastic heads. And if I can be a head, I promise you anybody can be a head. The skills that we have as women, being kind, being open, being empathetic, being honest, these are the skills you need in headship. And I promise you, it really isn't rocket science. So I'm just going to give a few pointers of some of the things that worked for us in our school. I think the first crucial thing is to know your staff. And by that, I mean every single person in your building. As a head teacher, you are responsible for every single adult that walks into that school. And that's quite a big thing. I think the step up from being a deputy to a head teacher is quite phenomenal, actually. It's nothing to be frightened of, but you've got the power, you've got the control over every single person. One of the things I thought was really important as a head was to sort of nullify the distinction between teaching and non-teaching staff. And I think that's really important. So every time you have a consultation or a working group, make sure there's somebody from the non-teaching staff in there. They have the most amazing views, their opinions are valid, and it makes for a unified staff. Also, as the head, you will create the ethos for your school. People will copy you, you are a role model. How can you do that? It's just by being a nice, decent person. So when you see Rachel on the corridor, you say, oh, how's your baby? I believe it was her first week at nursery. You don't have to go over the top and be sort of intrusive into people's lives, but knowing things about people. We had a guy I worked with whose nephew very sadly died. I always asked him about how his sister was doing, and I know that meant a lot to him. It didn't take me anything. Knowing the names of people's partners. It's all stuff that we're really, really good at as women, but it makes for fantastic staff morale. I thought one of the greatest, most enjoyable things for me was when I retired. I had a retirement party. The dinner ladies all came to my retirement party, and that said such a lot to me about the ethos we'd created together as a school. Don't doubt yourself. We as women doubt ourselves all the time. We see a job advert, we look at the things we can't do. You don't need to do everything as a head teacher. I'll tell you now, I do not understand data. I don't get it at all. I don't understand one side of a spreadsheet, and I was not allowed near the budget. School was fine. We got to outstanding because people did it. That's about delegation and creating a team. You do not have to do everything yourself. Also, I know that some of you will be thinking, I can't be ahead. I can't work till 8 o'clock every night. I've got kids, I've got commitments, I've got an elderly dad, or blah, blah, blah. It's nonsense. You don't have to really stay late. You work what suits you. I don't want to see a head teacher that's there till 9 o'clock every night, setting a really poor example to other staff. You go when it suits you. I was happy to do email late at night because it suited me, but I wasn't in the building at 10 o'clock at night or 9 o'clock or 5 o'clock sometimes. You just do what you can. And I think creating, again, that ethos for your staff is really, really important. One of the things about staff ethos as well is about involving staff in things you do. Set up working groups. You don't have to be on them all. Your senior leadership team doesn't need to have to be on them all. It's about people feeling they've got a control and about a little bit of power themselves. One of the staff came to me, she was a new mum, and she said, can I set up a new mums group? What a fantastic idea. And then that spread to new parents. And I didn't have any part of that, but I know that was a really successful working group in school. At one point, when we were in special measures, we set up a going to outstanding group. The caretaker was on it, and he had such a lot to offer. Also, when you're setting up these working groups, remember the power of food. Now, that might sound very small and very unimportant, but you know how hard working in schools is. You're there from 7:30 in the morning. You're quite often on the gates, early doors. If you take somebody's break or somebody's using their lunchtime, feed them. It doesn't take a lot to do that. And then the leftovers, you go on the corridor and you give them to the kids at the end of the day. Consult staff as much as you can. We had an issue over when to pay people over Christmas. And I had a view about this. And, you know, it's where you pay people a bit early over Christmas and then the next payday in January is delayed a bit. And I thought, oh, that would be fine for everybody. The cleaners came to see me en masse. And I realised I hadn't taken into account how little they were earning and how important it was that they got their pay on a set day. So we changed that decision and we put the payday when it suited the cleaners. Small decision, but made such a lot to them. Admit your mistakes. We all make them. You know, I've made some terrible appointments, and obviously you can't stand up in a staff meeting and said I should never have appointed person X, but you know, to your governors, to your whoever, you can admit those mistakes, and you'll make small mistakes as well. I once closed the school early because it was snowing. We all got down 30 yards down the road. There was bright sunlight, not a bit of snow anywhere. I'd completely closed the school. Big mistake. It was very nice actually. We got an afternoon off, but there you go. Appointments are really crucial. And as I said earlier, you know, you sometimes make mistakes, but I would also say, go with your gut. Sometimes you know that a person is right for your school and they might do a real car crash interview. Doesn't matter to me, appoint them. I was appointed to a school and I was told that my interview was the worst the head teacher had ever seen in 40 years of interviewing. I got the job and it was great. I did well at the school, but remember that, you know, your gut is quite often right. Understand your staff needs. I was always very good, I think, at letting people have an afternoon off for a nativity play or an afternoon off for a sports day. I know when you go into a trust, that's really quite problematic, and you know, HR are telling you can't do that sort of thing. Just do it. It makes such a lot of difference, and you'll get the payback from the staff. And somebody earlier on was talking about flexible working. I had a deputy head who worked flexibly so she could take her boys to school, and she came in late one morning and had one afternoon off to go and pick them up. Made all the difference to her, and it was no skin off our nose. We could cover it, wasn't a problem, just worked perfectly. Just what I'd like to say also is language in your school is really important. I find it really, really difficult when people go into an assembly and say, and you know, there'll be half girls, half boys, and they say, hey guys, listen up. Guys for me is a male term, and we shouldn't, in my opinion, we should not be using it. And it's become very commonplace now, but for me, it's a male term. I changed something in sports day, and you know, I had a fantastic PE department, got on really well with them, and they always let me fire the gun on sports day. It was terribly exciting. But I noticed that in the programme it said boys 100 metres, girls 100 metres. You know, boys were always first. Change it. Simple, very, very effective. And you know, how often have you heard people say, who's manning the office today? Don't allow it to happen. Those language is really, really important. The final thing I want to say is be decisive. You're there as a head to make decisions. And do you know what? It doesn't matter if it's the wrong decision, actually. Just show that you can make a decision. Finally, if I may, I'd like to just end with a quote, because I know we're going to go into question and answers, I think. And it's this, and I've used it before at conferences. If you actually look at it, it's really powerful. A leader is best when people barely know she exists. When her work is done, her aim fulfilled, they always say, we did it ourselves. And that's the mantra that I've kind of worked towards as a head teacher, really. No idea how long that lasted, probably too quick for you, but there we go, we're done.
Not at all. Absolutely brilliant. We've all been frantically trying to get notes down, Anne, from what you've been saying. It was so inspirational. Thank you so much. So much advice packed into such a small session.
Thank you.
So Vicky and I will be tweeting out, and we'll continue to as we catch up with our notes, some of the best bits from that. Yeah, absolutely. And such an important quote as well. Basically, chance to open up now. If anybody's got a question for Anne, either pop it in the chat, or, oh, brilliant, Claire's going to kick us off. Pop your hand up and then we can come in from that way. Go.
Oh, I was using my clapping icon. I wasn't putting my hands up.
Well, now your hand's up.
I was just very excited. But it's
Thank
okay.
you, Claire. That's really
kind.
kind.
I was trying to clap, but I won't ask a question because I know Anne really well, but I will say something, and it's the point Anne made about kindness. When I started my headship at High Stores, my mum died the day before, and lots of people sent me kind words, which was very nice. But Anne offered to do my ironing, which was like the kindest thing anyone ever did. I didn't let her do my ironing because no one should have to iron my trousers. But it was just such a female thing to do, and it was just so kind, because actually when things are really bad, quite often it's practical support you need, and women offer that to each other. So yeah, so I'll go back to my clapping icon and turn my mic.
Thank you. Raj, have you got a question for Anne?
More of a comment, I think, to be honest. Very, very good session. Thank you, Anne. A lot of what you say resonates with me. I have actually been a governor trustee for 25 plus years and in education, and then also run my own business and professional background is HR. So I'm really, really pleased to hear you talking about valuing all members of staff, irrespective of their role in school. because I think quite often that's where leaders and sometimes the male traits get in the way of that. The one thing I was waiting for you to talk about, you didn't really mention much for me, was governors actually, because the issue we have is that we don't have enough female head teachers, particularly in secondary, female CEOs, again, predominantly secondary maths. And my view, and everybody, anyone that knows me will know that I keep shouting this, we will not see any change until we see change in governance. We do not have enough women, especially not black and brown women, if you like, as well. So it's not just about equality, it's about equity. You can't have one without the other.
Can I come back on? Oh, sorry, I'm interrupting. No.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
No,
the question really is, what do we do about governance? Because those are the people that appoint the head teachers.
Well,
and the CEO.
I've just joined 2 governing bodies actually. But something else, I mean, this is a side issue, actually. Yes, of course, we need more governors. But something I did with governors, and when I started as a head, you know, governors' meetings were at 6 o'clock at night. And I know that suits working governors, but when you're a head or a senior leader and you're on governors' meetings, you've been at school since 7 in the morning, and, you know, your governors' meeting is ending at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. Absolute nonsense. And fortunately, I had a very supportive chair of governors, and I was able to say, I'm sorry, this is not good work-life balance. You need to have your governors meetings in the afternoon so we can all work effectively the next morning. Raj, I know that sort of doesn't answer your question, but yes, we need to recruit more women and less white males, most definitely. I don't know how is the answer.
Well, for me, I mean, the comment about governor meetings, when I first started in governance, all meetings were 7:30 in the evening. 25 years ago. Now I'm chair and I try and make sure that I accommodate school staff, but equally I have got governors who are working and they do also get up at 5, 6 in the morning, get their kids ready and what have you, and they do a long day in the office and then they attend meetings. So we try and make sure that there is a structure in the sense that maybe some of the subcommittee meetings are earlier, and also make sure, I don't see why the head has to attend every single meeting. So, you know, there are ways around it, definitely.
Brilliant. Thank you, Raj. It's about balance, isn't it? And finding the right balance for everyone, and accessibility as well, isn't it? And taking into account everybody's needs when planning those things. And in particular, to come back to you, and they're talking about how we can get more governors. It's the same way how we need more female head teachers in the first place. It's about us putting ourselves forward, tackling those self-doubts that you talked about there, and actually saying, do you know what, yes, I can. And I think that's some of the power of the women ed community, that even if your own inner critic is too loud saying no you can't, there are so many around you who recognize what you can do and say, actually, yes, you can.
You
Stop
absolutely
listening
can.
to those doubts. Absolutely brilliant. Has anyone else got any other questions for Anne? I have one. If not, I can't see everybody, unfortunately, because I'm sharing the screen. Vicky, is there anyone else with their hands up?
Not that I can see at the moment. Okay. No, go ahead, Portia.
I've got one for you then. So I'm agree with you, Anne. I think the working party model is a fantastic model to go for, to make sure there's full representation of views across the school. But I'm interested in how you've balanced that with clarity around school priorities, because the danger of having everybody's view heard is that everybody's own agenda then gets driven forward. So how do you find that balance around the things that are going to be the highest leverage, the biggest impact?
Well, if I could talk about when we were moving from special measures to outstanding.
Perfect.
I was really honest, you know. What I really wanted to do was have a banner at schools that said Ofsteders were crap, and we know we are. And, you know, but it's about having that common sense of value right from the very, very beginning. So when we were in special measures, we all agreed as a staff what the issues were. So every working party had that as its backdrop, if you like. So you agree those common things before you start. And you know, again, that's about promoting the ethos and having those conversations all the time and being very clear as a head or as a school about what your priorities were. And we knew that teaching and learning was rubbish, and we had to move it on. So everything sort of hinged around that common concept.
All agenda. I'm just frantically tweeting this as you talk then, Anne. Sorry. So I'm looking down.
No problem.
Not disinterested. I'm tweeting.
No, it's absolutely fine. Absolutely fine.
Yeah, great message. So it's about that clarity of agendas to make sure that though you've got all those voices being heard, they're all working towards the same sort of priorities that you.
And you know, as I said, not even the caretaker, I don't mean it like that, but you know, he said to me during the Ofsted inspection, "Are we going to do it, Anne? Are we going to do it?" And you know, this was a guy who hadn't come up through a normal education route, but it was just lovely to hear the caretaker saying that, and all the kids saying, "Oh, we're going to get this outstanding," you know, because they knew that was on the table.
And it comes back to that famous NASA quote, isn't it? When someone was asking a cleaner what they do.
Yeah.
At NASA, they say, "I put a man on the moon," or woman now, as it is. But it's that everybody's working towards the same common goal, isn't it? And driving in the same direction. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Anne. Is there anything more before we move on?
I think
I'll just say before I go, sorry Vicky, I'll let you come in. I mean, I'm happy to do anything for this group or for any women individually. You know, if anybody wants anything, that, you know, you can find me and I'll help you in any way I can.
Thank you so much, Anne. Vicky?
And I think, I was just going to chip in there just to say, like I say, laughing away as you know, every time I've sat down with Anne and spoken to Anne, I've just frantically made loads and loads of notes, because you are a powerful force, and I think is a word phrase I used with Portia and Claire when we mentioned that we might be able to ask you to talk. And actually, I just want to thank, on behalf of Women Ed Yorkshire and Humber, just to say thank you so much for giving up your time on a Saturday morning.
Not at all.
And for inspiring us yet again, and me personally yet again, to be that 10% brave and go, you know, I can do that, and it doesn't matter if I haven't got that bit, because I know I can do that. So thank you.
That's really very generous of you. I'm going to leave and look after my grandchildren now, who I have on a Saturday morning. So I'm not being disinterested when I press the leave.
Not at all. So, it's about balance. Thanks, Anne.
Good luck for the rest of the conference. Thanks. Bye. Bye.
Well, it gives me great pleasure to move on from one incredibly inspirational woman to another now. I'm going to completely fangirl now, and she's probably going to get a little bit embarrassed, but Samina was the first Yorkshire and Humber representative of Women Ed that I ever met. And I was so inspired by just her general presence that it was probably down to her that I joined up with the Women Ed community in the first place. I remember she and Viv Porritt accosted me in a toilet in Yorkshire, a research ed conference. And that was it. I've not looked back since. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce Samina today. You can see down there the list of just everything that she has achieved as a woman, and it is just incredible. It was so much I couldn't even get it all in. But I think what is summed up by that is the power of Samina's message and what she puts out about diversity, representation, about equality, the fact that the title of I can't even think, the name of her company and consultancy company is Equitable Education, and that is why we are here, isn't it? So it gives me great pleasure to introduce Samina. Samina, are you there?
I am, yes, thank you for that really warm welcome. It's fabulous listening to Anne as well, so I shall try to follow in her footsteps. I need to put up on screen a PowerPoint. Is that okay if I can do that now?
Absolutely. Oh, well, yeah, and these I need to stop sharing, doesn't it? Hang on, and I need to make you a co-host. Oh, hang on, sorry. Catching up with Zoom. Hang on 2 seconds, Samina.
It's okay, because we can all look at each other's lovely faces now and say,
there you go. Right, you're a co-host, you should be able to share now.
Thank you.
Is it working?
I'm hoping, is it on screen now?
It is. Oh, look at this, the wonders of technology.
So just bear with me. Right, okay, brilliant. So thank you for inviting me this morning. It's really great to be with everyone here, and I can see lots of lovely faces and friends that I've made through Women Ed. So I'm just going to carry on with the theme of what Women Ed can do for you. And I think before we talk about education, I just wanted to share this graphic with you, because obviously the gender inequalities we have in education is just a permeation of what happens in society. And I think if you look at this picture that you have on your screen at the moment, you can see all the pressures and the sort of tensions that exist for women and girls in particular in society overall. And constantly we have this barrage of comments, expectations of women, and, you know, in terms of how we're supposed to behave, and basically you can't win. And so that's why it's really, really important that we have this network. We have Women Ed that brings, you know, women together. And I think when you think of the situation that we've been in terms of COVID more recently, just having that opportunity and space for us to talk about things, not necessarily always work related, but just have that opportunity to talk about these matters is really, really critical. And there was a couple of things that I wanted to just obviously bring to the fore at the moment. One is the sad, you know, murders of Sarah Everard and Sabina Nessa that are just really in, you know, in the headlines at the moment. And I think it really does bring home the issues that we face as women. So that's one context. And I just wanted to share this with you, which is absolutely bonkers in terms of, this is an article in the Times yesterday saying that women do their best innovating when we're ovulating. So I suggest you all get a menstrual calendar, as we've got there, an app to say, and then I think we should start, I'm being very facetious here, having our meetings when we're ovulating. Now, the only problem with this is obviously it will depend on if we've got lots of women trying to get our, you know, calendars all synchronized so that we can have the best time to have a productive meeting. But I think it's just absolute rubbish that we come up with, you know, that again, women are different. This is how, you know, you can get the best of, you know, what's going on. The other thing that I wanted to say, and I've forgotten the previous slide, Ofsted published a report around sexual harassment and sexual abuse in schools as well in the summer. And I do work in my day job as a Senior Learning Standards and Effectiveness Officer in Doncaster, which is where I'm based. And I do know from some of the inspections that are taking place already that there is a big focus on that, rightly so. And I think it should have been there, you know, previously. So just really interesting to say that some of these things that are there, they are actually a permeation of what's going on in society. And I think it just shows the extent of the work that we need to do moving forward. So very briefly, just wanted to share with you around Women Ed. You know, we started in 2015. As Portia said, I was one of the co-founders. It has moved to a global movement. It was just a Twitter conversation on a Sunday afternoon when we had a bit of time, like-minded women getting together, talking about the lack of women in leadership positions, and now we've absolutely grown. So you can see this is what we wanted to do. I won't dwell too much on this because Portia and Victoria have already highlighted the sort of main mission. You also, I think you'd probably be aware, so we started off, I can just say that the first conference that we had at Microsoft offices in London, in central London, in Victoria, we hadn't even met, there were 7 co-founders of Women Ed at that particular point. We hadn't actually all met in the same room. We planned the unconference at different venues, different people could get together, and I think that was the first time we met. So we never envisaged, it was just one unconference for us to get together, and now you can see how Women Ed has grown exponentially, and that wasn't part of the plan, but it just shows that this is an issue for most women everywhere. And, you know, globally as well, it's something that has really resonated. And so this is what's brought women together, because they want to address some of these, you know, issues. It also means you are part of a fabulous network of people, not only in England, but actually globally. So you can see our values. That was the first thing that we actually did to make sure that we were all united. We knew what we stood for. And Portia's already gone, Portia and Victoria have already gone through those values. So when you're signing up to Women Ed, you are signing up to these really important values. Again, you know, the 9th unofficial value is cake. You know, we do really like that opportunity, and hopefully when things are safe that you'll have the opportunity to meet people face to face over you know, tea, coffee and some cake, so that there's that real social element a part of Women Ed. Just want to take it a little bit further in terms of, you know, as more schools are joining maths, there is some really recent research building on the work that Dr. Kay Fuller does every 5 years. So that data that was shared previously, it was from 2017, and I think she's probably due to do some more research because to see what the picture is in terms of secondary headship. And it's sad that we have to rely on Kay's research to be able to get the latest data. It's not that easy to get hold of, and she does do a lot of manual work in terms of going on school websites to get hold of that data rather than just relying on the national database. So this latest research undertaken by Schools Week looked at the maths with the largest numbers, so it's not right across the board. And what they found is that in terms of gender leadership positions, there is an improving picture. So he does this on an annual basis. I think last year he wasn't able to do it because of COVID. So it says it's taken 2 years this time for the audit to be done. So you can see that there are more women that are actually in CEO positions. However, there are only 2 BAME CEOs, and both of them are men, which is the same as what it was about 3 years ago. And he did actually ask me to comment, and if you do read the article, you'll see it does say it's a cautious welcome, because I think there are improvements taking place. So it does show the impact of organisations like Women Ed, and obviously people in the system recognising that more needs to be done. However, this is still a small pool, and we do need to make sure. I'd like to see some trends moving forward. And if you want the stats, you can actually read that article. It's all in there. There was this other report that was written by Forum Strategy, which focuses on equality, diversity, inclusion among academy trusts. So you can see just done a little bit before the research that James did. And again, it really does highlight a slightly improving picture, but it does highlight very clearly the fact that although we're getting gender equality, this is not actually improving when you look at other characteristics. For example, ethnic minorities, if you look at disability and LGBT, which is obviously one of the things that we do try to do within Women Ed, we just don't have the data. It's not there, so we can't actually even see whether there's an improving picture. And Raj, earlier on, you made that really important point about the role of governors. Governors' own composition, there's a lot of work that needs to be done in terms of looking at different characteristics, and also in terms of, you know, the influence that they have in terms of employing and recruiting these key people to post. So there's still a lot of work to do, but if you want the latest statistics and everything, please do have a look at that. Now you can see in Yorkshire and Humber, sorry, this is nationally, it's not Yorkshire and Humber, that, you know, 1 in 3 pupils are from minority ethnic backgrounds, but you can see in terms of leadership positions, that big, massive gap. And I think there's a lot more to be done. So if you are in positions where you are recruiting, this is something that you can play a key role in, but also be there and champion, you know, women of all characteristics. But it's really hard to get figures for Yorkshire and Humber in terms of ethnicity, because they just don't publish it anymore in the way that they did. I think the last set of data was in 2012. But and this is anecdotal, so please don't quote me, but the last set of data that I had, which is probably about 10 years old now, I think there was only 1% of BME head teachers in Yorkshire and Humber. So I think Yorkshire and Humber generally, compared to the national picture, is much further behind. So we've got a lot more work to do. Just very quickly, I wanted to share with you some research that I did for Leeds Beckett University called Drilling Through Concrete Ceilings, and it looked at the leadership position and factors that were enablers as well as barriers for BME female leaders in secondary education. And without going into loads of the barriers I think we're all familiar with, some of the things that they felt that would help them, and I think this will resonate for all women, that having the right qualifications and experience was really critical, and that I found in my research that the women that I interviewed were well overqualified for the job, but they felt that they were tools that would help them to succeed. So they made sure that they were really well qualified and had the relevant skills before applying for posts. Now, obviously, I'm not suggesting that you just collect qualifications for the sake of it, but it does help in terms of that recruitment. And obviously we've got women ed that are doing the masters as well, so that's an opportunity for you. What was really interesting, that the attitudes of senior leaders could be both a barrier and an enabler, but certainly with those that were successful, having some significant other to help you on that leadership journey was really an important factor. And often they were the ones that pushed colleagues to really go for that next step, even when they were hesitant. So having somebody, and Anne was very kind to, offer her services, having people to support you in that role is really, really critical. So Women Ed is obviously a place where you can come to get that support. Interestingly, the third factor that made a big difference in terms of their success was performance management. Not because performance management works per se, because we know that it doesn't if you look at the research, but what they felt was through performance management, they were able to really clearly articulate the impact that they had made in terms of their objectives. And so it removed some of the barriers in terms of that progression that they wanted. So they used performance management as a lever to enable them to succeed. As you would expect, being involved in professional networks was really, really critical for them. And they did find at that particular point when I started doing this research, having networks like Women Ed, BAME Ed, Disability Ed were a real absolute godsend for them, because previously they hadn't felt that they could really gel or be part of existing networks. So having the flexibility, meeting like-minded women in particular, had really been a catapult for them to go for that next role. And finally, the fifth enabler was access to CPD opportunities, and they really did, take that seriously, including the fast track programs that were available, leadership programs. They did take full advantage of that, and the mentoring and coaching to enable them to, succeed in that next step in terms of their career progression. That's a very simple synopsis of the research. There is a chapter in 10% Braver that if you want to read further, and you can also access the research on Leeds Beckett University. So I thought that would be helpful for you to have a look at. I just wanted to share this quote from one of the colleagues that I interviewed, just to show that even though it's a tough job being a head teacher, but actually it's really well worth it, having that opportunity to truly influence the community. It's a huge responsibility, but there's lots of rewards that come with it. So I urge you to really, think of the bigger picture and see how you can move forward. And also, just to highlight again, using your own resources, thinking about, how you can support other women, particularly BAME women. I did sort of come up with the phrase of drilling through concrete ceilings. We often talk about glass ceilings, which has been established since 1978. But for BME female leaders, it is a concrete ceiling. It's damn hard work to succeed. I've been in education over 35 years, and there's very few women that I come across in leadership positions in Yorkshire and Humber. So as I said, there's a lot more work that we need to do. So I'm going to stop there, a very quick whistle stop tour. So really, you are really, really powerful. You have and collectively, you're going to be even more amazing if you work together, support one another, and let's, really not just rise, but actually fly. Today is about this. It's the opportunity for you to get together, like-minded women, and really go for it. So I hope you have a really good, morning, and have the opportunity to get to know one another much better, which I know is on the programme later on. Okay.
Samina, thank you so much. What an inspiration, as always. I'm just grinning from my stomach to my face right now and about flying together and helping each other to do so. Thank you so much. If you're available for a few questions, I'm sure we'll have some around. Is that okay? Has anyone got a question for Samina to kick us off? I'm trying to see the people. Just unmute yourself if you've got something.
Just while people are thinking questions, just Raj, you know, in terms of your the point that you made in the chat, I agree. You know, I do use equity as opposed to equality, and that's really about removing barriers for individuals rather than trying to treat everybody the same. It just doesn't work. So yeah, totally agree with you. And in fact, that's what my book is about: equity as opposed to equality.
Equity, not equality.
I think you've got a question if you want to chip in.
Yeah, I was, well, it was just a comment as much as anything that I read Samina's book as soon as it came out. I too am a fangirl. And in fact, so much so we all read it as SLT, and I've recommended it to other SLTs because I've been searching for something like that didn't just speak to the protected characteristics, but talked about equity in terms of poverty and inclusion and need. And it is just absolutely fabulous. And I've been doing my utmost to get every other SLT I can to read it because it speaks to everything we need. We don't need, I don't think, to talk about catch-up curriculum and recovery. We need to talk about meeting the needs of all those children who need us most. And actually, if we steer that course rather than the red herrings that the government feed us, we're going to do a much better job. So that was just really just saying how fabulous the book is. Thanks, Samina.
Oh, thanks, Claire. And just on that, if you do, you know, if you're interested, I'm not here to sell the book, but if you use School 21 on Critical Publishing, where they're the actual publishers, you could get a 20% discount. If you do, you know, just for women ed colleagues, you can get that a little bit cheper.
We love that.
I think I'd just like to echo exactly what Claire has said. I was just looking on my ledge bookshelf. That is the book there, Samina's book, and it is absolutely amazing. It's another one of those wonderful books where, as you read it, you go, oh yeah, oh yeah, need to do that. But then once you've read it once, you'll be in the middle of a meeting, or in the middle of a discussion, you'll just be like, actually, let me just think on that, and you'll go back and dip into it, and it really is a really, really valuable book. So yeah, I'll absolutely echo what Claire's just said as well there. So thank you for it.
Thanks, Vicky. And just on the back of that, one of the reasons I wrote the book is obviously to really make a difference to all our children and young people. And as Claire said, you know, the rhetoric that we get nationally is not the true picture. So that was one of the things to put things right. But also what I am trying to do is use some of the proceeds from the work that I am doing around the book to set up a girls' charity to help actually underprivileged children abroad, but particularly girls. So that's my sort of more medium long-term aim when I've got a little bit more time to put lots of energy into there, so that, you know, young girls abroad can actually get those opportunities that I've been very fortunate to have, and we all have and we take for granted. So that's going to be the main focus of my work going forward.
Such important work as well, Samina. Thank you so much. Right, I know we are running slightly behind schedule, but I'm not bothered in the slightest because the conversation has just been superb. So that is, thank you so much. Samina, if you can hang around, that is wonderful. But I do understand if you need to get off.
I do. I'm just putting something in the chat, but I'll just say thanks for having me. I do have to go and do some other things, and I just hope you have a fabulous morning.
No,
okay?
thank you so much. So great you could join us. And I think that's also the joy of online. We can dip in and out as we need to. We all know this is the trouble with busy women. Busy women are busy women. So we all have to do what we can. And so a huge thanks to those of you who've got small children, dogs, whatever, running around your feet right now and still managed to join us. And obviously, if you do need to dip in and out, please do. So moving on, we have now got our speed dating. Now, I'm going to ask Claire if she wouldn't mind actually starting us off so I can sort out the tech for Heidi's, because she's actually joining us via video. So if Claire doesn't mind starting us off 5 minutes, you've got a lineup for all these incredible women to explain what Women Ed has done for us in our careers and our personal lives, just to, again, give you a little bit of inspiration about getting involved with the network. So Claire, I'm going to hand over to you.
Yeah, I have to say, I don't normally sound like this. This is not my normal voice, but I've not been very well. But I'm kind of wishing this was my normal voice because it's a bit more impressive or sultry. But yeah, hello, I'm Claire Tasker. So as I've put in the notes, I live in Sheffield, but I grew up in the Northwest. I've lived in Sheffield for over 20 years, but it wasn't where I grew up. One of the things Portia asked me to talk about was the milestones in my career, and I'll just go through those because they speak to how I came to be into Women's Ed and how I got connected with it. So I worked abroad for a year before someone's got a really cute daughter. Oh, hello. I worked abroad for a year before I started my PGC, and that was really invaluable because I think that it gave me a perspective on it being interesting, global education, and again that speaks to Women's Ed. But then I started my first job. I'm a historian, so I was a history teacher, and in my third year, I've always been really interested in research and reading and academics. So I started my master's in my third year, and I decided as I got to the dissertation stage to look at why there were so few women that were head teachers. I was really curious about it, and I was curious about interviewing women at all stages in their career. Young ones, did they have aspirations to be heads? Middle leaders, what was their thinking, and the heads that were female, and it was hard to find them. How had they got there? What could I learn from it all? And I was really curious about that. I was partly curious about that because I had some sort of sense of feedback that people would say to me I was a bit too smiley and not quite stern enough to be a head, and so I wanted to know a little bit more about that. So that was a really important milestone. I then went on to work for one of the heads I interviewed. I became her assistant head, which was great, and then from that became deputy head. And as Vic mentioned at the start, I was a co-head teacher at one point as well, which was quite a groundbreaking to persuade that my governors, but it was really good. And I learned in my research that often women need a taster of leadership, and so to be a co-head was a really safe first way in. And now I'm head of an amazing school in Sheffield. And whilst I was deputy head, before I became co-head, I heard about the first Women Ed conference, and I went to it. I dragged a friend of mine who's now deputy head at Stocky down there with me, and it was amazing, and it blew our minds. And it just gave us confidence and connection. And just, I'd spoken to so many audiences, and I'd never spoken to an audience that smiled all the time. And that was what it was like to be at Women Ed, not feeling like the audience was judging you, but they were like, yeah, that's great. And just hearing from amazing people and connecting with people I probably wouldn't have come across was brilliant. So how did I pay that forward? Well, I started to source funding to run leading women programs in the last two schools, this school and the school previously, just running programs for women, about women, and taking it on the chin when men would say, no, where's the program for men? And I'd say, every program is for men. This one's just for women. And so that's something I've tried to do, as well as promoting flexible working, supporting it where I can. I actually have a Friday afternoon off at the moment this year to do my research for my my dissertation for my doctorate, which I'm embarking on now, and I'm hoping that I'm being a role model in that, as well as enjoying my research. So that's me.
I got deeply engrossed in you there, Claire, and sort of forgot that unmute that Portia and I were both co-hosts.
It was the voice. It was the voice, wasn't it, Vic?
We were just so blown away. I was like, you're still doing your doctorate Friday afternoon off? You're running all this? Oh my gosh. So yeah, that was the point of this. A little 5-minute snippet of inspiration. Thank you so much, Claire. I should have, she says. Let's hope. Hayley's video here for you to watch now. Fingers crossed now. Share sound. I've got to click that button. Here we go. So fingers crossed. So this is Hayley joining us here. Let's hope.
Hi everyone, my name's Heidi Hughes and I'm Head of Education at Iris Connect, and I also work as a senior lecturer at the University of Sunderland, as well as speaking all over the country about mentoring and supporting disadvantaged students, and writing education books as well. I live in Saddleworth in Greater Manchester. I grew up in quite a disadvantaged background, grew up on a council estate in a town in the northwest. I was one of 8 children. There was a lot of us. I was the oldest, so I always got blamed for everything, like most people who are the oldest child. And from a very young age, really, I was quite ambitious. I was very determined to go to university, to go to college. I dreamt one day of becoming a journalist and writing books. And I guess I couldn't have ever imagined, really, as a child, that my dream would come true. So when I left school, I didn't do as well in school as I probably ought to have. I was quite naughty, I would probably say, looking back on it now. I didn't really like authority figures. Nothing's changed in that, really. And I always tried to kind of push the envelope back that little bit too far, I guess. So I got out of school with not the best qualifications in the world. I went on to college, where I did much of the same during my A-levels and didn't do that well there either, and actually got chucked out of college just before my A-level exams and had to pay to go and do them at a different college somewhere else. So it's fair to say that I didn't have the smoothest road to becoming an educator at all. And in fact, when I went back to my old secondary school to do a placement, when I was training to be a teacher years later, my form teacher kind of looked at me and laughed and couldn't really believe that I was actually going to become a teacher myself. So before I became a teacher, I was a journalist. I worked at a quite notorious national newspaper in London that's been closed down for illegal phone hacking. And after that, I decided that I wanted to have a job that had more moral purpose, and I became a teacher. And I did that job for 15 years and never really looked back. I absolutely love being a teacher. It's part of who I am. It's you know, etched through my bones, really. I love seeing the difference that we can make in young people, and also developing other teachers as well. I'm very, very passionate about experienced teachers. And one of kind of the key milestones on my own journey, really, and how I got involved in Women Ed, was that I went to a conference in Leeds a few years ago when I was just at the end of my maternity leave with some colleagues. And over my maternity leave, I joined Twitter for the first time. I'd never engaged with it before. I remember maybe looking at it a year before, seeing all the stuff on the timeline and thinking, how the hell do I use that? So I didn't bother. So I went to this Women Ed event and I heard some amazing speakers, including Jennifer Webb. And I thought, do you know what, this is something that I want to get more involved in. And it really kind of pushed me towards thinking that I can have it all, so to speak. I can be a leader in schools, I can develop, you know, as well as being a mother, having a family. And, you know, the popular narrative and the popular rhetoric is that those things are mutually exclusive, and they're absolutely not. I remember one particular time when I was on my way back, coming back from maternity leave. I came to my return to work interview with a head teacher I was working for at the time, and I had a big 1950s pram, and I brought my daughter in with me to this meeting. And I expressed the desire to possibly go back and work in the senior leadership team in a school. And the head teacher told me, you know, look at your daughter, she's only young, you know, and you don't want to be making that kind of commitment. Enjoy her while she's young. So I was really shocked by this. I wondered whether he would have made that kind of misogynistic comment to a man on his return to work if he'd been ill or, you know, had spent some time outside of the classroom. And to be honest, that just spurred me on even more. So I've received amazing advice from so many people, and in terms of me paying it forward, you know, I've had other women who are teachers or school leaders messaging me, emailing me, asking me about how they might get a book published, and I've passed on emails to them, giving them my advice. I've proofread people's books. I've gone through possible interview questions that people might get who wanted to do similar roles to me. Just last week, I was Zooming 2 people who wanted to make the move from school to IT, like I have done as well. So I feel like, you know, I want to be that flame that lights other people's candles, because when I felt like I was sputtering and my wick was getting low, there were people like Jenny Webb and others who were there for me and lit that candle for me. And I want to be that person that also brings the light to others as well.
What an incredible, oh, hang on, I am unmuted. Oh, what an incredible metaphor she just shared at the end there. about being that flame that lights other people's candles. Really, really powerful. She's currently in Wales, is Hailey. So she's actually just tweeting us from Wales, just saying she's with us in spirit. Yeah, what a powerful metaphor. That's the one that's going to stay with me. Brilliant. Okay, so up next we have got Victoria O'Farrell. Are you there? Are you able to join us?
I'm here and I'm able to join you.
Oh, hi.
I hope I can speak as eloquently as the other two. Here goes. So what's Women Ed done for me? Well, what I will say in what it has done for me is unclipped my wings. I've always had wings. I've always had desire. I've always had aspirations as such. But there was a period in my life where that kind of came to a bit of a stop. And that was about 6 years ago. And what happened was I read an article written by Kezia Featherstone, who's one of the co-founders of Women Ed. And her article was referencing statistics about women in leadership, which were very shocking, as we've just seen earlier this morning. But the question that she was raising is, in the article was like, why is this? And she was then talking about family commitments. So all this was resonating with me at this particular time in my life, because I'd just recently had a child. I'd already had one child who's about 9 months old, and then I had my second child. Oh, sorry, no, a bit longer than that. It wasn't quite that quick. But I'd just had my second child, and I'd also moved to area. So I moved from London to the Northwest. And I was just at that kind of point in my career where I still had these kind of aspirations, but things were holding me back. And I couldn't really fathom what it was. So when I read all this, it was like, oh, this sounds wonderful. And then the article also referenced the first unconference that was taking place in a month's time in London. So I got online and I went to book myself a ticket, but they sold out. And I was I felt really upset about that. So I contacted Kezia directly and said, is there any chance you can sneak me in? She said, no, but I'll see if I have any cancellations. And there was a cancellation, so off I trotted. And I trotted with these words in my ear that made me really make sure I went. And the words in my ear were from a male colleague who said, I don't think it's a good idea that you should get involved with this Women Ed organisation, because it sounds a bit radical for me and it's not going to be very good for your reputation and profile. So I went. And I absolutely went, because I just wanted to say fingers up, basically. And it was one of the most liberating experiences that I've had, because what it gave to me was connection with other women. It gave me a community to tap into and allowed me to grow in my confidence so that I could then unclip those wings and fly forward. From that, actually, I did meet lots of people, and they really, really encouraged me to step out of my comfort zone and to do things like lead sessions, shock horror, stand in front of a group of women, which wasn't too scary, actually. I think that's been mentioned already, lots of smiley faces and encouragement. But to lead sessions, to be involved in lots of other activities, to be the lead for the Northwest, and then to step out of my comfort zone and also be involved with Women Ed England as well. Taking that leap and being 10% braver, and there was lots of that encouragement. The other part of it, which I felt has been really fantastic, is then being in that leadership opportunity to be able to empower others as well. So I'm now a head teacher of a pupil referral unit in Blackpool, and I've only just taken on that role. But even already just in that first half term, just to be able to work with other people, women and men, and encourage them to take the leap, to take them out of their comfort zone, to find themselves and realize that they are actually capable of being them. And it's actually okay to be authentically them. They don't have to apologize for that. And that's what it's really allowed me to do as well. So that whole pass it on has definitely happened. And also for me, in my own personal situation now, because I'm perimenopausal and I'm unapologetic about that. Why should I be apologetic? But I think we live in a society where we have to be, and we have to be quiet about these life changes that we go through. But actually, you know, that's also given me another campaign to look at and to think about that in the workplace of education, and how we can actually make the workplace more accepting, or should I say accepting and inclusive for everybody, and for everybody during their different life stages as well. So there's still a way to go. It's done a lot for me personally. I think through that, it's also therefore done a lot for others that I work with. But there are some things that I still need to have a word of myself about. So you remember I told you that I've recently have a new job and a post, which is brilliant. When I went for that interview and then I was told that I was successful, I have a confession, and Vivian will be so cross with me. I did not negotiate my pay. And that was wrong, because she's supported me in so many other ways, as Women Ed has, in actually making the leap and going forth, you know, my dreams as such. But still, I'm not all there. So there is still a piece of work to do there. But also, I think through my own experiences of that, I can actually help others to make sure that they challenge some of those situations and support themselves more. Okay, I hope that's all right.
Another one where both Portia and I think, Portia can't unmute, Portia and I are sat here so deeply engrossed and inspired that we forget that we're supposed to be hosting, and we forget to unmute and come back. Thank you so much, so much, Victoria. That was truly inspirational. And having also run PRUs, I kindred spirit there with you on that one. So a massive thank you, Portia.
I agree. It is wonderful. Jackie up next. To continue a theme, we have got a theme of flying coming on, and yes, I agree with Karine there. Your honesty, Victoria, has been really, really empowering there, so thank you so much for sharing that. Jackie, over to you.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here this morning. I might actually spoil that theme because I'm more of someone who hops than flies. Anyway, for those who don't know, my name's Jackie Hill. I'm pleased to be a founding fellow of the Chartered College of Teachers, because it reminds me and shows everyone else the thing I'm most proud of in life, which is to be a teacher, an educator, a trainer. I'm one of the neighbours of Yorkshire and Humber. I'm a network leader in Women Ed Northwest, and also in Women Ed Northern Ireland, where I'm a co-founder. So I'm lucky to be involved in the Women Ed networks in the two places I call home. You also need to know I'm a mum, I'm a grandma. I have two grandchildren who are very lucky to have two mummies. One is my lovely daughter-in-law, who's Yorkshire born and bred through and through. And the other is my daughter, who's also a teacher in the Northwest, a maths teacher. We've lived in Stockport for 25 years. I'm from Belfast, and today I'm speaking to you from Cloughey, which is almost the most easterly part of Ireland. So I'll tell you in a minute milestones in my careers, but I have worked with schools across the country and organisations with offices in London and Sheffield. So I'm very familiar with that train journey from Stockport across to Sheffield and back again. Happy days. So the hopping bit comes in because in Sheffield a couple of years ago at the annual conference, I did a presentation, a workshop about my career pathway in terms of like a hopscotch grid. I listened to people talking about climbing up the career ladder and progressing forward. But for me, it's never really been like that. It's been a bit like hopping forward, getting a few steps forward, looking around, and then maybe having to go back to the beginning again. And it's not straightforward. And I'm so encouraged these days because so many other people say the same. So I had 10 years in Northern Ireland in FE. Then I switched when we moved to Stockport, and it was a 10% braver moment, but I didn't realise it at the time, to train as an MFL secondary teacher. So I was in a school in Stockport for about 12 years and eventually became the training school leader. As you know, training schools sort of were the forerunners of teaching schools. And then I took a massive sort of step out of my comfort zone, and came out of school for what I thought would be temporary, a couple of years, to be the TDA, training school consultant, in the West Midlands and the Northwest. And that was one of the best professional development experiences ever for me, never mind the people I was working with. And then between 2010, 2020, I did various things, mainly worked for Hibernia College UK, which became TES Institute. And for much of that time, I was Director of School Partnership. And for part of the time, forgive me, I was an additional inspector for Ofsted for ITE. I'm currently semi-retired, and I have the joy of being able to choose projects. And one of the impacts of Women Ed is that many of those projects have come out of connections that I've made through Women Ed, Early Career Framework, CPD-QA pilot, peer reviewing for Impact and Innovate. I hope you've all looked at the magazine that Women Ed has co-produced recently, and the Diverse Educators Manifesto, which will be out in January. So what has Women Ed done for me? Well, I wrote, at the time of the 5th anniversary, I wrote a blog about that. I'm not going to go through it. You can sort of go on, you can see it. I've put a link into the chat, but I just want to mention a couple of things people have already mentioned. Victoria mentioned about community and connect and collaborate and so on. I discovered EduTwitter because of Women Ed. I turned my nose up at Twitter before that. It has been fantastic. So the community on Twitter, the global Women Ed community has been fantastic. I was on a ferry from Belfast to Liverpool in August, and I said to my husband, Sarah is on this boat, and it was Sarah Mullen, who I'd never met but linked with loads of times through Women Ed, and we were messaging one another and discovered we were sitting 2 tables apart. How wonderful is that you can link with people long before you ever meet them face to face and yet feel you know them really well. The unconferences and events to get to know and learn from all these inspirational women, and the he for she men as well. And then the other thing that really I want to mention of the other values, the 8 values are fantastic. And I'm loving today's 2 new values. Okay, being a champion as well as having a champion. That's really important. Okay, so championing, and the other one is cake. But of the original 8, the other one that really got to me is is the confidence. I was a painfully shy child, and although I did loads of things as a learner and so on, that little shy child never left. And it was only decades later at Women Ed that I discovered that little rascal in there was really Confidence's little ugly sister, the imposter that was challenging me and telling me I wasn't good enough and I shouldn't be doing things and I would be found out. Now, I have to say, she hasn't gone completely. But as somebody else said, it was Portia, I think, what Women Ed provides are people who tell you, yes, you can do this, and continually remind you. And that is what I love. Going forward, love flexible working. Whenever I asked for flexible working in a previous job, somebody said, is it for your grandmotherly duties? I love my grandchildren, but no one said that to my husband when he decided to go 3 days a week. He laughed when I said, are you doing this for your grandfatherly duties? Really promoting diversity, inclusion, equity, and choice above all for women of all ages. That's it.
Amazing, Jackie, thank you so much. Again, taking so much from that, but I'm loving the new value, being a champion, having a champion and being one as well. And that's very much about the message we're talking about, passing it on. It's not just about coming to these events and getting all G'd up and feeling amazing for a day. This is about going out then and being 10% braver and spreading that message so everybody gets to feel like this all the time. And I certainly feel that after listening to yours, Jackie. Thank you so much. So Victoria, Vicky is up next.
Yeah, over to me again. So sorry that you're hearing lots and lots of, well, no, actually, no, I'm not going to apologise that you're hearing lots of mine and Portia's voices, because we're just really, really pleased to be here. A couple of you will sort of know my journey. I recognise Shana there, as I work with her lovely, wonderful other half, and obviously Claire. So a couple of you will know my journey, but it's quite a bizarre one, really. So and I'm going to bounce back to where Jackie said about hopscotch, because that is the best analogy for my career that I can possibly ever use. So Vicky Sheffield, I'm currently a deputy head teacher in a large inner city Sheffield school. It's a bizarre journey I've taken to get here, really. So I started off in mainstream science, ducked over into being head of science in a behaviour special school. From there, went back into mainstream as assistant head, where I had the privilege of working with the wonderful Claire, which genuinely was a privilege, Claire, and I learned so much from you, so thank you. And then even though my current head teacher at the time said to me that he thought I was absolutely insane, I then went across to be deputy head of a special measures pupil referral unit in Sheffield, which was was a tough gig. The head left, so Milestone there is the head left sort of 6 months after I started, and she wasn't replaced, which left me holding the baby, so to speak. So I went from being a deputy of a special measures PRU to being the head of a special measures PRU quite quickly, and so that was a milestone, and I learned a lot there. I learned about politics in good ways and bad ways. It was a tricky old job, but I then got pregnant, which was wonderful and planned. And my last day at the PRU was my due date, because whilst I was on maternity, I applied to be deputy head of a different Sheffield school. So this is where the hopscotch bit comes in. So I went from being a head, stepping back into mainstream as a deputy head. But actually I was really privileged. He's still a current head in Sheffield over at Firth Park, Dean, and he was really amazing. So he appointed me 4 weeks postpartum. So I'd literally went for my interview 4 weeks after having my little boy, who's now 6.5, and the job was due to start at let me think now, due to start at Easter, and he appointed me from Easter, but knowing that I wasn't going to actually physically start work in the building until May half term, and so to credit to Dean, and I'm sure he won't be grumpy that I said this, but he was amazing. He was really, really supportive, and he knew that I would be absolutely there on the phone, on the computer, doing as much as I could, but I couldn't be in the building because I'd got this tiny little bundle at home, and so that for him was awesome. So I'm really pleased and really proud of Dean for doing that, and I'm grateful for him. I then hopscotched out again a bit later to be head teacher in Lincolnshire of another special measures pupil referral unit, to take that out of special measures because I'm a glutton for punishment, and that was great, but it was also challenging. There was a lot of challenging politics. There was a male, very male executive team, and it was tough. It was really, really tough. And at that point I decided to reevaluate things quite a lot. And so what I did was I went, I'm done with my 70-hour weeks. I'm done with not seeing my little boy. I'm done. And I stepped back to be an assistant head teacher, and it was one of the best things I've ever done. So if anybody ever questions you, or you question yourself as I'm at this position, should I step back? If it feels the right thing to do for you, do it, because I did, and I did it for 3 years, and I rebuilt myself. I rebuilt how I felt, I rebuilt my passion for education, I rebuilt my passion for leadership, and yeah, it was absolutely the right thing to do. And I then came back to Sheffield, so I'm in Sheffield, so I came back to the school that I'm at now as a deputy head. And actually it's been a weird, you know, the diagram that you see that's got the getting from A to B, and it's that nice straight line, and then you see the other diagram and it's all the squiggles. That is me. I am the squiggles. But I know where I want to be, and I know what I want to do, and I think in terms of now, it's very much yeah, I know my end game, I know my goal. But coming back to the core of why Women Ed, why we're here, and what has Women Ed done for me, sitting within all of that weird and wonderful journey were the unconferences, were the networks that I'd built, were the people that I met who championed me, and who were on the end of a phone, and who were there to say, no, you do that. And Anne, who spoke earlier, Anne was one of those people that I relied on for advice and guidance. Claire, I've messaged a few times, gone, what do I do here? And got that advice and guidance. And And Vivian has been an absolute stalwart. Is that the right word? I'm a science teacher, not an English teacher. But Viv's just been like the person saying, no, you do this and you ask for it and you make sure you do it this way. And she's been amazing. So if anybody needs that guidance, then go to Vivian Porritt, because she's amazing. But yeah, so within all of that, I also signed up for a master's, which started as I started a deputy headship at the school I'm at now. So that was a fine juggling act. But what I've discovered in the masters is that I have the women in my pockets. They are literally on my phone. And we have a WhatsApp group of the Women Ed cohort that I'm in. And there are days that I don't necessarily know that I'd have got through without those women in my pocket. Hayley mentioned Jenny Webb earlier. Jenny Webb's one of the women in my pocket, as are some other phenomenal ladies. And when WhatsApp went down the other day, it was very traumatic. And the following day, when WhatsApp came back up, our little group sort of, oh my God, we've missed you so much. It's been 24 hours, but I don't know how I'd survived without you all. And it really was. And for Women Ed, for me, Women Ed has given me champions. It's given me support. It's given me people that I can count on, and people that I can trust, and people that I can ask questions of and know that they're going to come back and say, actually, Vic, yeah, do this. Or, no, do you know what, career suicide flower, don't do it. Or, yeah, I get it, but don't go and tell that person that. But you can vent and you can have those conversations. So find your tribe, I think, is what I would say, and find your champions, and Women Ed will give you the opportunity to do that. How have I paid it back? I think within that, and within the whole time that I've been involved with Women Ed, and certainly as a regional lead, but as a wider network, I have done mock interviews for people, for their daughters, for their nieces, for their nephews, for their cousins. So mock interviews just to get onto a teacher training course, mock interviews for people who are applying to be deputy heads, mock interviews for, across the whole like hierarchy of you know, career ladder. So done mock interviews, I've done coaching conversations with people in terms of what do they need to do, how to hold a difficult conversation. Myself and Jen have, again, we've done coaching conversations and presentation, I didn't pronounce that right, did I? Presentations, and where we've pinged it to each other and said, actually, how does this work? Does that work? Sharing a CPD where we've created CPD and then shared it with whoever wants it, because why should everybody reinvent the wheel? You know, if you've already created something on how to deliver and you know, implement a whole new vocabulary structure, a whole school, then why would I keep that to myself? Why not do that for the benefit of everybody else that's out there? So in terms of championing and tribe, yeah, I'm going off on a bit of a tangent, but find your tribe, find your champions, champion each other. But as Anne said earlier, I am absolutely on the end of the line. If anybody needs anything or wants anything, then, you know, give us a shout. And Women in Yorkshire and Humber, I think we're all here to do our very, very best for everybody that's here. So I'm going to stop rambling and then hand back to Portia to introduce the next person.
Not rambling, squiggly. We love it. It's another new badger for us. We're picking up all sorts today. Our squiggly journeys are still wonderful and still absolutely valid. And I've already tweeted out about sometimes, this is a really powerful Women Ed message I've heard before, sometimes stepping back can be stepping forward. And it's about what is right for you when. Samina talked earlier about all of those pressures that we're constantly under and expectations. Well, ain't nobody's business but yours, what your journey looks like. Okay, so, and it's incredible that all of them that we've had shared today are so different. And it's now over to me to share mine. As you will probably tell, I do feel a little of fraud today. The accent isn't exactly true Yorkshire. I am a Hibernophile. I'm committed to the north now, and having been up here about 11 years now, 12 years, with a bit of a gap in the middle, it is actually about 16 in total. I followed a boy, a Yorkshireman, and I came up to Yorkshire back in 2000 now when I started uni here. And for my sins, I'm the other half of Mr. T SCI 409, who you may have come across on Twitter, but he's the most incredible he for she. And I've been very lucky. This is going to be a common theme coming through here, that the champions that I have had have been incredible about recognizing my imposter syndrome, and that's my confession to you all. That I am it feels a little bit like being at a meeting. I am Portia Taylor and I suffer from imposter syndrome. So I am a deputy head teacher for quality of education in a large mat in Bradford now, but that is not where I began, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my milestones today, just because, again, like Vicky, it's a little squiggly and not particularly what you'd expect. So, and I'm hoping that that can actually provide some inspiration to you today. Those of you who are thinking, I want to circumnavigate the usual channels, which was actually used to me as an insult in my first school to tell me off that I was in. Because as per usual, you are circumnavigating the usual channels, Portia. And in my head, I was going, that's because they're rubbish channels and they need changing. So it kind of started there in my NQT year, and I didn't last in that school for long. I left quite a toxic environment, feeling like actually maybe teaching wasn't for me back when I started, and that was down in Essex. And thankfully, I was picked up by an incredible female leader, and this is where the image of broken wings comes back in. It was her words she used to me: when you came to us, Portia, your wings had been broken, and now I can see that actually they have been rebuilt. And it was because of her belief and the leader's belief in that school that they made me think, actually, I can. And the voices that had fed the imposter syndrome from my very first school just dispelled. And given loads of opportunities there, really flew, picked up loads of random, you know, those unpaid jobs that you start with when you start the development opportunities, picked up loads of those randomly, and ended up doing quite well with those. And I did my first middle leadership course, which again, somebody else put me on because I didn't really think that was for me. I was only a RQT+1 at that point, doing middle leadership course. And then I got headhunted to go and do my first associate senior leadership post in another school in the area. Again, wasn't really for me, that particular school. And I think one of the things I've taken, especially from the women ed community, is recognizing when a school ethos doesn't mesh with yours, and saying, actually, it's okay that I've only been at this school for a year because it's not the right school for me, and moving on quickly from there. And with that message in mind, when I made the move to Yorkshire, many years ago now, I decided to circumnavigate the usual channels. And I went to local authority, and I went to Kirklees local authority, and I got in touch with the education department there. And I said, this is my skill set. This is my CV. I want to be in a school that needs me. I want to work in schools in challenging circumstances. I want to, what gets me out of bed in the morning is working in high levels of deprivation for the kids that really need quality teachers and representation, exactly as Samina was talking about earlier. And they put me in touch with an incredible school in Huddersfield, and I never looked back. And I was there for 9 years, and that basically supported my journey to senior leadership. I started off, and again, a bit of inspiration for you hopefully here, I negotiated my salary. I said, you can have me, but you have to match my salary. I can't take any less. So they did. And again, huge champion there in the form of the executive head teacher at the time. He could recognize the talent and rewarded it. He then didn't have a go at me when a few months later I said, I'm really sorry, but I seem to have got pregnant quite quickly. And I didn't anticipate getting pregnant quite as quickly as I did when I started that job. But he gave me my first associate senior leadership official post when I was 6 months pregnant. And I returned quite quickly after having had that, because I felt I had something to prove. And again, they really helped me find that balance when you're a new mum, which those of you on the screen who have been new mums realize it's a very, very difficult time, and having those champions in school is absolutely essential for you at that point. Through that school, I had another child after I'd become an assistant head teacher. And again, an incredible he for she really advocated for me. I came back on a phased part-time. The idea was always to go back full-time, but I managed to negotiate, because of his championing, that I dropped a day a week just for a year, just while we settled into being a 4 as a family as opposed to a 3. And then I stepped back up. And I remember sitting in his office going, am I a bad mum for wanting to come back full-time? And I remember these words where he said, some people, it's not their destiny to push a pram in a park. And there's nothing wrong with pushing a pram in a park. And it took a long time for me to realize that, but it's also okay not to be that mum too. And it's just different. It doesn't mean it's not as good. So from there, it all sort of kicked off. I became acting deputy head in that school, and Viv basically nudged me very, very hard to go and do my Women Ed NPQH, which was basically like, you have to do it. That was the nudge. And I was like, oh, okay. I'll sign up then. And I met the wonderful Hilary that's in the room here as well today. Whoop, and like Vicky, incredible cohort of women, massive, massive champions, little pocket pals that help us get through each day. So really, really common themes coming through all these messages today. In terms of how I've played it forward, I'm really a big advocate for those who also suffer with imposter syndrome, those who think they can't, those whose inner critics are just so loud that they make them spot every tiny little mistake that they make in what they do day in, day out. So I've written some blogs about that. I ended up presenting at the Unconference about that. Again, huge nudge that took. Had to be like 20-30% braver at least on that one. And it's how we I coach people now in tackling their own inner imposters. And really look at how we can raise awareness around it. And I also, for every event, make sure I bring a friend. And I think that's an important one. Those people think, oh, it's not really my thing. Maybe it's a bit radical, as we talked about earlier. But actually, maybe it's time we are a bit radical. And maybe we need to get a bit more radical to help challenge breaking through that concrete ceiling that Samina talked about earlier. So that's it from me. Well, it's not, because we've got to move on. We are behind. I did want us to have a good 20 minutes in session. If it's all right with everyone else, we're going to give you a good 10 minutes just to have a little chat in your breakout rooms. Vicky's going to take over at this point, just introducing this while I attempt to set out the breakout rooms. So Vicky, can you just hold the fort while I sort this?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll carry on rambling again. So what we're going to focus on here is basically what we want in the breakout rooms is, what can we do? So we've talked a lot about what Women Ed have done for us, and we've talked about what support we've got and what we've given back. But actually what we want to do now as Women Ed Yorkshire and Humber is find out actually what would be useful. We've got some really key people here. We'd sold loads and loads of tickets. So I think one of the things for us is how do we promote it better? What day is better? What times are better for people? But actually, what can we do for, thank you, Claire, no problem. Bye-bye. See you soon. What for us, it's what can we do and how can we do it so that Women Ed Yorkshire and Humber can give you what you need, or your colleagues or your friends give you what you need, and also to how do you want us to shape what we do going forward? So I think that's basically what we want. I think, is that about right?
Yeah, absolutely. I have opened the rooms now. If you could join the rooms, and I'm going to put the chat into the chat, the message, the form I need you to fill out, please.
I just got back from an open water swim, and I literally dashed home, not had a shower, because I was so determined to come today. And I'm sat here and I've had 2 pints of tea and I'm freezing. I'm not really cold, but I've just managed to take the stupid hat off because I'm sat here blowing my hands because I'm trying to warm up because the water was quite cold.
That's amazing. Can I just chip in, ladies, and I'm going to leave you to it. I've put the form in the main chat because I can't seem to broadcast it to your room. Apologies. So the form I want you to work through is in the main chat. If you can just use that one, that'd be appreciated. Sounds wonderful, Corinne. I'm a little bit jealous. I love open water swimming. So yeah, hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you in a bit.
Thanks, Portia. Can anybody see the chat?
I've just opened the chat, but I can't see a form.
replicate what we were doing, and talking to these inspirational women above us in CEO and senior roles. So that really got me going, that it was time for me to step up.
Great stuff.
Coincidentally, I visited Beckfoot. Now, this is about 12 years ago, but there is a point here. And it was the guy who was the training school leader at the time is now the head teacher where my daughter teaches, and he is one of the most amazing he for she's and supporters of Women Ed. Whenever there was the last annual conference in Sheffield, he actually supported them.
And I lead across multiple staff and multiple things. Do you know what I mean? But I still want a piece of paper.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, is there anybody else who sort of, I've got down Reboot in Confidence, next steps, work-life balance, which I think is key for so many of us, myself included. Cutting through the noise, I love.
Hi, Michelle. I'm really glad you could join us. Everyone's in their breakout rooms at the moment. Oh, you're muted.
Sorry, I've been having one of those mares. I apologise. It's so lovely. I was just saying to Vic, because I was just messaging Victoria saying, I've got a blooming hair appointment at 1 o'clock and I've been trying frantically to get in. So I'm just going to leave it online so I can nip out and nip back.
That's all right. Well, it finishes at 12 anyway. So.
Oh, God, I can't. Well, it's been recorded, so that's fantastic.
It has been recorded. It's going to go onto YouTube.
Yeah,
so don't worry about that.
Have you had a good morning?
It's been awesome. Feeling absolutely pepped up. Whoop. It's so many incredible stories from incredible women. We've been tweeting about it. So sort of the key headlines you can catch up on the hashtag Women Ed.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just really glad you could join us even at the end. So what you're going to hear back, I'm going to stop it in about 4 minutes.
Yeah.
You're going to hear back all the sort of headlines from the breakout rooms. What I can do for now, because you know Vicky anyway, don't you?
Yeah.
Do you want me to just pop you into Vicky's breakout room?
That'd be great. Thank you.
Not a problem. So, hang on, where is she? Where did I even put her? There she is. Hang on. Oh, hang on. How do I do that? Do you know what? I'm not even sure how I assign you. Unassign, Michelle. Assign to. I've got it.
Yeah, you probably know more than me.
I'll see you in a bit. I'm learning quickly, I tell you. I'll see you in a bit.
See you, lovely.
Hi, everyone's coming back in now. Fabulous. Thank you, ladies. We'll just wait for the other rooms just to rejoin us as well.
Portia, is it okay just to say that we weren't able to access the discussion form? So
yeah, no, that's absolutely fine. I was worried that was going to be the case. Can you access it now? You're back in chat, Hayley. Can you click on the link now? Does it work? She says she hopes.
I'm just going to Sue, I think it was just talking. What I was going to say was I can absolutely help with that, but Viv Porritt is a big part of the NCE as well. So if you message Viv, then she will point you in the right direction and signpost you into how to access all the funding and the apprenticeship levy and stuff for the masters. But Mitch has also done the masters. He's doing the masters with me, and she will also be able to signpost that as well for you and help, because Mitch is in a primary school too, Sue. So hopefully that will be useful. But I can message you separately if that helps.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Right, I'm sorry that for the first time today, to be fair, and I was very worried about this, but my technical know-how failed me. There was a form that I was hoping you'd be able to have a chance to actually fill out while you were in your breakout rooms. Can I just check that everyone can access that form now on the chat? So if you go into chat, there should be a link there. It's Microsoft Forms. Is it there? Can you access it? What? I've put it in chat. This isn't good.
I know I can't see it, Portia.
You can't see it.
No.
Oh,
I can do it for our group anyway, though.
Okay. So while people are doing some feedback, I'm going to attempt to get the link back out to you in the forms. And if you can I ask that everybody does fill it out before you leave us today? It's really important that we gather all your viewpoints to make sure that we are representing exactly what you need personally, and we can then put a program together that works for everyone. So I'm going to hand over to Vicky to share back your groups, and I'm going to attempt to fix it.
Fab. So in terms of groups, Portia, how many groups did we have? 3 winners. So I don't know who was in which group. So if any first person wants to unmute and just fire away, and then I'll feed back on ours lastly. So does anybody want to unmute and kick us off in terms of your top 3 takeaways? Karen.
Okay, we had a really good discussion. It was really great to meet with those people. Thanks. We all agreed we wanted something that gave us a chance to practice those values, and a chance to be involved and to be active in the organisation. That was really, people wanted not to feel lonely, to feel supported by each other. And we had a really good discussion, I think, about the various perspectives of ages and stages throughout our careers. Not necessarily it's all being about headship. Sometimes it can be about upwards and outwards instead of upwards, and supporting each other to be look out there and move in different ways, yeah, we've talked about all sorts of other things as well, but I know we're short of time.
Myself, I was scribbling away then trying to make notes. So I've got so being involved, being active, practicing the values, and then perspectives of ages and stages. So I guess like we're not just talking about jumping up to SLT or taking the steps up to headship, but actually it might be from going from that early career stage teacher to being a second in department or to being a head of year. Just before I take masses of feedback, when Portia and I were talking originally about this, what we spoke about a little bit was do people want sort of almost like career clinics and things like that, and practicing of interviews, and just give us a bit of a nod if that sort of thing would be useful. Yeah, winner. All right, okay. Hayley, you'd got your hand up. Do you want to feedback?
Yeah, as I say, just to sort of feedback from our group, it's interesting to hear some common themes there from Karen's group. We talked about that sense of isolation, and that actually for those of us sort of in our group, that actually this morning has been really valuable to hear kind of female voices. Actually, just to hear experiences has been not only uplifting, but actually just really important in making us feel connected in various different ways, whether it was sort of career-based or whether the type of work that we're doing means that we don't necessarily have the opportunity to connect with other women in leadership, or to see those leaders. I suppose it goes back to the you can't be what you can't see sort of idea. We thought that actually for us, that, you know, as a group, that having informal forums for just, you know, shouting out kind of, you know, can anybody help me with, a bit like you sort of referred to, finding that tribe, finding that network, whether that was Twitter, whether that was sort of WhatsApp, with that social media base, but also Anne-Marie particularly talked about the value of coaching and kind of peer coaching, and that would be something that potentially as a network, whether that fits in with, as you've just said, Vicky, whether that's career clinics, and sometimes that's perhaps just more about confidence and kind of people giving you that shove in the right direction. So that's what we kind of came together and sort of agreed as our 3 takeaways: that hearing voices, having that informal network, and having that peer coaching opportunity.
Brilliant, thank you. And I can see Portia scribbling down as well as me. I've got loads of notes. It's brilliant, and I can only say thank you so much for joining us and giving up your morning. Just from our little group, so we'd got a few things, and I think something that that Shauna said was actually really resonated, and in my squiggly career path was rebuilding confidence. And I think we'd all found that when we start a new school, all of a sudden, even though we know we can do that job inside out with our eyes closed, we've still got to prove ourselves. And I think sometimes we have to, and I'm being a little bit generalization, but sometimes we have to prove ourselves more because we're female, because we do have well, I can do 8 of that things on that list of 10 jobs, but those 2 are the ones that I'll focus on. Whereas, and having been in experiences with lots of men like this, they'll be like, oh, I can do 6, but hey, sod the 4, it doesn't matter. And it's us shifting that rebalance and having the confidence to shift, so that we do, as Anne said, well, actually, just because I can't do those 2, that doesn't make me any less of a person. I'll delegate that. And so that confidence, I think, is absolutely key. So thank you. Looking at next steps and then balancing the work-life balance. Do I take the big step of this when I've also got tons of commitments at home with my little ones? And my little 6.5-year-old's downstairs, he's just entertained himself for 2 hours with YouTube whilst I've been here, bless him. My husband's at work. So but yeah, so balancing that work-life balance and being confident to take the next steps, even though we know we've got loads of things to balance, and having your tribe there to back you and give you the ideas and give you the support to do that. And then again, Shauna, this one as well, cutting through the noise of CPD, bombarded with 50 CPD emails a week. Which ones are worth it and which ones aren't? Which ones do I dedicate my time to? Which ones don't I? I'd highly recommend the NCE Masters, by the way, the Women Ed cohort. But so those are some bits. We'd also talked quite a bit about flexible working and being confident to ask about flexible working. And if you're not an SLT, and we do always meet after school, and it is always till 6 o'clock or something terrible. Well, not all SLTs, but most. And then if you're invited to speak at SLT, being confident and having the confidence in yourself to turn around and say, actually, I'm really sorry, but that's going to cost me more money on childcare, so I'll present, but only if it's in the first 15 minutes of SLT. And knowing and being confident that your SLT will back you. And that's when you find a super school. Because if somebody said that to me, I'd be absolutely, we can shift the agenda around you. If you need to get off at this time, you will be in and present at that time. But having your own self-belief of your own ability to say that. So that's definitely it. And then working parties. So spoke really a lot about working parties and policy change. And actually, could we as a group of women, as a tribe of Women Ed Yorkshire and Humber, could we build in some working parties where we can talk about policies and practice and how we could then start to instigate real change? So I think those would be the takeaways from our group. And does anybody else want to chip in? You've heard lots from me and Portia. Anybody else want to add anything there? Or something that you've got a real burning desire that actually Yorkshire and Humber Women Ed, we need you to do this, please, for us. So does anybody want to chip in any final bits there? No, have we covered everything? Yay. Portia.
I'm frantically trying to say, I think we've got 10 there, I think, yeah. From which I've summarized. I'm literally just about to tweet them out from the account. And ladies, can I just say such a huge thank you to everyone for giving up your Saturday morning to connect with us. I've just had a fire relit, and I don't know about the rest of you, but it's so inspirational to see and hear from everyone on your journeys and how that's that commonality, that shared experience as well, isn't it? What we have felt. And I think Hayley, you just summarized it so well. There's such a sense of isolation sometimes, and it goes back to what Samina was saying about the bombarding of those expectations on us, and to come together like this, reignite, to use Hayley's metaphor, each other's candles. It's just been fantastic. We are ever so slightly over, which isn't bad, I don't think. 5 minutes.
Well, I'm quite proud of us.
I think that's not bad. Can I please ask that you do fill out that form for us? I've got the overview, but your personal preferences. So, for example, I know that with Vicky and I both having young children, I don't want that to be the dominant voice in here today. I know the perimenopausal that Victoria talked about earlier. I know the menopause is a really big issue. I've got huge communities in my school and the trust looking at that as well. You know, whatever is yours, we need to make sure we hear it. So please do fill that out. We'll capture it all together and then basically keep your eyes peeled. So I've got a slide for it. I'm just going to talk it through anyway. I'm not putting it back on. So next steps, basically, we're going to use your ideas to pull together a program of network events, and not just events of, like you've said about those forums. I loved that. Again, I think it was Hayley talked about those informal and formal volumes for shouting out, whether it's the wall you need to shout out because of things you're facing that you just need to vent about, or whether actually it's shouting out about our sisters and the fantastic work that's going on. And you say, oh, we need to hear from this person, like Claire's got her PhD research, we really want to hear about that, and all those other sorts of things. You know, shout them out, let us know. You can get more involved by following us on Twitter and sending us a DM on there, and we can always contact you back from there. You can sign up to the Women Ed newsletter here. I promised you I'd do this, right? And just try again to actually get a link into chat. This didn't go well for me last time. Putting it into the chat now, a link to our newsletter. So every event that is going on across all of Women Ed is on there. So you can sign up to any of those. Buy or borrow the books, definitely worth it. And obviously you can go and watch all of it on YouTube, our YouTube channel. So if you search #WomenEd, everything will come up and you can have even more of this that you can watch at your own disposal. And that is it. I'm going to round up from there. Thank you.
I've just pinged up my mobile number. Am I muted? Yes. I've just put my mobile number into the chat. I'm very, very happy. I know some people have said, I feel a bit lonely or, you know, it's really great to have a tribe. Do you know what? Just message, you know, and we can, Portia and I'm sure we'll find time. But feel free. Yeah, Portia, DM Portia on Twitter. Yeah. I'm happy for you to WhatsApp me if you do need, you know, we're all crazy busy, but the one thing I've found, and Mitch will attest to this in terms of our masters WhatsApp, our ladies in our pocket, there is that network and that confidence and the ability to text somebody or just message somebody and go, help me. We're there and we will support. So please use us and we will do what we can. But thank you so much for coming this morning.
Thank you everyone, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye.
Thanks everybody. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
I'm trying to